Okay, so if you're studying for competitive exams, you know that India's government structure is a must-know topic. But let's be honest, it can get pretty confusing, right? Who reports to whom? Who actually holds the power? Well, in this explainer, we're going to map out the entire executive branch, all the way from the Prime Minister's office down to the states and union territories. The goal is to give you a clear and simple framework to remember it all.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get the big picture of who runs the country. Then, we're going to zoom in on the Prime Minister's core team. After that, we'll check out the leadership at the state level before we tackle the unique way union territories are run. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the key things you really need to know.
All right, let's start at the very top. Section 1. Who runs the country? We're going to kick things off with a high-level look at the executive branch.
Which brings us to the most basic question, but it's a big one. Who are the key people actually leading India today? When you think about the government, who are the faces and what are the roles that pop into your head? Let's figure out exactly who they are and how all the pieces fit together.
Okay, now let's zoom in on the heart of the central government. Section 2 is all about the PM's team, and we're going to focus on understanding the Union Council of Ministers. You can think of this group as the government's engine room, where all the major national decisions get made.
So what is this council exactly? Well, it's pretty much the main executive body for the entire Republic of India. It's led by the Prime Minister, and this group of ministers is the one collectively responsible for governing the whole country.
And sitting at the very top, heading this council, is the Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi. Just look at the scope of his direct responsibilities. It's not just the title of Prime Minister. He directly manages these huge portfolios like atomic energy and space and oversees all the big policy issues. That concentration of power really tells you a lot about where the ultimate authority is and just how important science, tech, and national security are at the highest level.
Now, the Prime Minister doesn't work alone, of course. He's got a core team of senior ministers, and these are known as the cabinet ministers. Here are some of the most critical roles that really form the backbone of the government: defense, home affairs, finance, external affairs, and road transport. I mean, these ministries handle everything from keeping the country safe and managing the economy to dealing with India's relationships with the rest of the world.
Now, it's not just a flat structure. There's a very clear hierarchy here, and for any exam, this is something you have to know. There are basically 3 tiers. First, you have the cabinet minister. This is the top boss of a specific ministry. Then, you have the Minister of State with independent charge. They handle their own ministry directly, no cabinet minister above them. And finally, you have the Minister of State, or MOS. You can think of them as a junior minister who's there to assist a cabinet minister.
And here are some examples of that second tier we just talked about. Ministers with independent charge. As you can see, they have full responsibility for some really important portfolios, like statistics or science and technology. This structure gives them a ton of authority in their specific areas, all without having to report to a cabinet minister.
Okay, we've got a good handle on the central government. But India is a union of states, right? It's a federal system. So let's switch gears. Section 3, Leaders of the States. This is where we get to see that federal structure really come to life.
This slide right here gives you the complete list of chief ministers and governors for all 28 states. It's a fantastic resource to have. But as you look at this, you'll see 2 key titles for every state: chief minister and governor. So what's the real difference between the roles?
So here's the crucial difference. The chief minister is the elected head of the state government. You can think of them as the state's version of the prime minister, running the day-to-day administration. The governor, on the other hand, is the ceremonial head, and they are appointed by the President of India. Their main job is to be a link, a bridge between the state and the central government. So one governs and the other oversees. Elected versus appointed. That's the key.
We've talked about the union government, and we've talked about the states. But you know, there's one more piece to this whole puzzle. So let's get into Section 4, Governing Union Territories. These places have a very different, very unique administrative setup.
And here you go, the list of leaders for India's 8 union territories. As you scan through this, something should jump out at you pretty quickly. Some UTs, like Delhi and Puducherry, have chief ministers, but the others are led by a lieutenant governor or an administrator. So, why is that?
This is the key thing to get about union territories. Unlike states, UTs are directly controlled by the central government. Most of them are run by an administrator or a lieutenant governor who is appointed by the president. But
There are a few exceptions, like Delhi and Puducherry, that have their own elected legislatures and their own chief ministers. It's kind of a hybrid model. It gives them some self-governance, you could say partial statehood, but the central government still holds the ultimate authority.
All right, we have covered the Union, the states, and the Union territories. Let's boil this all down in our final section, what you need to know. Think of this as your cheat sheet, the high-impact summary you need for your exams.
So here are the 4 big points to lock in. First, India has a 3-tiered executive. That's Union, State, and UT. Second, you got to remember the ministerial ranks at the center: Cabinet, Independent Charge, and Minister of State. Third is the state leadership duel. The elected chief minister runs the government, while the appointed governor is the head of state. And fourth, remember that UTs vary. Most are run by administrators, but a couple have their own chief ministers. If you can master these 4 points, you have absolutely nailed the basics of India's executive structure.
So, we've laid out the entire structure, from the PM's office all the way down to a local UT administrator. And that really leaves us with one final massive question to think about. How does this incredibly complex, multi-layered system of governance actually work together to lead a nation of over 1.4 billion people? Answering that? Well, that's the ongoing story of Indian democracy. Thanks so much for joining us.